Have you ever had somebody who actually failed practicals?
No one.
Is it possible?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So yeah, show up, make sure you go. And this is why you kind of see sometimes people who don't even have their chemistry lab, the results aren't even accurate, but you can still pass. Yeah. Disadvantages. Okay, so here's some of the major disadvantages of both things. You can kind of see here with the IBDP, there are tons of assessments, so you're going to be very, 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 very busy. Something else that we do kind of see in Hong Kong, especially a lot of the international schools, you want to make sure that if you do have an IBDP teacher, how long has that person been teaching IBDP? Are they just a teacher? Are they new to the system? This can kind of be a really major aspect that we see a lot of the time. So we'll have students who come in and, because we work with students from all the different schools in Hong Kong, we get a lot of the different gossip about all the teachers and who's doing this or who's doing that. And you'd be surprised at how some of the teachers approach some of these things very inappropriately, or they're not exactly teaching it the way that the exam board wants them to teach it because they're new to the system. The IB teachers go on training exercises all the time because the schools know that it's very, very difficult to teach, no matter what the subject is. So, make sure that if you do have a question for your teacher, or if you are with your IB coordinator or anything like that, try to push based on what you know. Try to make sure that your teacher is giving you all the resources that are available, and not just saying, okay guys, read silently in class and try to figure this thing out. It's intense. It's very intense for the teachers. And again, here with all the extras that you have to do, the required things, the IB is not just exams, so that's actually going to be pretty tough for you to do. On the other hand, all those assessments, especially if you are in the UK, like Sybil said, there are different exam boards as well. We talk about the EdXL versus the AQA or any of these other exam boards. So if you're talking to a friend who's also doing the A-levels, are they doing the same exam board as you? And this will actually change the way the program approaches the different subjects, and make sure that if you are looking at A-level resources online, that you are focused on the right exam boards, because they will change. For the IB, there's just the one exam board. They check everything. Everything's the same for all schools around the entire world, versus the 5 different exam boards here who do things very, very differently. Tougher math and science. I know you want to talk about that one there.
Yeah, actually most students who choose A-levels, they're actually good at math and science. You want to pursue more a career relates to math and science. Actually in A-levels, the math only actually can account for 2 subjects. We have math and we have further pure math, and these 2 can already be 2 subjects. And let's remind ourselves how many A-level subjects we need to choose. Normally 3. So some students, they can choose 2 out of 3 subjects just using math. Yeah, and then another one maybe just a science. Or another student, they will just choose for instance 2 science subjects and 1 math. Okay, but no matter which math or which science you're choosing, I need to remind you the content knowledge is actually should be a little bit even more difficult than IBHO. Yeah, the content knowledge itself should be a little bit more difficult. But we'll talk about later how to nail it, how to manage it.
Yeah, so if you are thinking about going into a major that's really heavy on math, the A-level math is really respected. We're going to actually take a look at some university admission statistics related to math and science too. Here are the advantages. So both of these, again, global recognition. You can apply to Australia, Hong Kong, schools in Japan, France, the UK, the US, all these sorts of things. But one of those major advantages is actually also one of the disadvantages. So the fact that there are so many assessments, it's very challenging, it's very difficult, it's a busy schedule, but because there are so many different assessments, you get many chances to prove yourself, and it's not weighted so heavily, 50% in one exam, 100% in one exam, and so that is a benefit. Again, the EE, the TOK, the CAS, those are also things that universities will look at for you as a student, and creating a diverse student profile for you. It's going to make you look a lot better. and then again that one exam board, versus where you may have all your assessments at once, you're really focused, you're sticking in only 3, maybe 4 subjects, but the independent choice of those subjects is a lot freer. I don't know if you'd add anything to the advantage of those.
I think major advantage my students considering about A-levels is actually it's not compulsory in choosing any subjects. So if you're really bad at one subject, for instance, math or like language, because I know in Hong Kong a school is kind of forced them to choose Chinese, which some of my students kind of complain like I don't use Chinese in my future career, right? And I'm really bad at Chinese even I work so hard. And then how to escape from this? Go to A-level school because nothing's compulsory.
Yeah.
You just choose like at most 4, like normally 3 subjects you want to learn. Yeah, you don't even need to choose math actually. If you like really like hate math, just don't want to do math related things. So you just choose 3 subjects you want. So I think that's the major thing my students were considering actually, go to like the boarding schools for A-levels instead of IB.
Yeah. All right, so university admissions. We'll take a look at the US and the UK, but if you guys do have any questions about any other admissions like Hong Kong or anywhere else, please let us know at the end. Here's some really interesting statistics as far as how universities kind of see the students. This is based on a recent report on the acceptance into top 20 universities around the world, and you can kind of see overwhelmingly this is actually, they're accepting far more IBDP students because those students have a very diverse profile. They're learning different perspectives, they're very busy students who have a lot of different subjects that they've been studying, and that does pay off. However, just as Sybil said, the AL students that they are accepting are way more for math and science. And so if you are thinking about choosing a math and science major or going into university for math and science, that actually does make you much more likely to be accepted into a top 20 global university for that subject, because like Sybil said, the maths are much harder, and then the sciences are challenging, these sorts of things, a lot of independent study. So again, mostly if you're undecided on your major, you don't know what you want to do, okay, great, it's fine, you can think about it later. The majority of universities are accepting, top 20 universities are doing IBDP students. However, if you are certain that you want to do STEM, it does give you a little bit of a boost on the IBDP students, unless you get those higher level scores. If you want to get a STEM major as an IB student, make sure you're taking your math and science for IB as an HL. Make sure you're getting a level 6 or you're getting a level 7. It doesn't mean you're not competitive, and we'll take a look why. But for the most part, this is kind of just a general breakdown of what universities kind of see for those IBDP students. There's so many different aspects to IBDP students, and this again is in stark contrast to the A-level student, okay? So what does that mean? It means you're really good at what you do. You're really good at those 3 subjects, okay? Because you focused on those 3 subjects for 2 entire years. So for the maths and sciences, this is especially interesting versus, there's a little less of a focus. But again, your HLs will be more highly valued than those SLs, and we can talk about that in a minute too. And here's where we see those score translations for the SLs and the HLs. We tried to talk about this a little bit last time with you guys as far as what it means for your HLs versus an SL. So you can kind of see here, for the most part, it's 1-to-1. If you get a 7 is kind of like an A star, a 6 is kind of like an A, a 5 is kind of like a B, or so on and so forth. Okay. We really don't like students getting 5s. Typically we kind of are able to show, all of our students actually. I don't think I've had a student with a 5 to how to get a 6, how to get and then some how to get a 7, how to get closer to a 7. But even if you do only get a 6, if it's in your HL, it's going to be more highly valued than an A star in that subject because it was HL. So when you're thinking about what kind of numbers do I need for my university offer, what kind of score should I try to get for my university offer, try to remember that your HL scores, especially if they're related to your major, are slightly more valuable. And as a result, the university might give you an easier offer to get in because you scored so high on your HLs, right? Versus, you know, if you get 5s on your HLs and you get 7s on all your SLs, those SL 7s are not going to be as valuable. They're not going to be as respected because they're SL. So keep that in mind as far as, okay, I have this many points, but where do my points come from? Do they come from my SL subjects or do they come from my HL subjects? For the A levels, it's a lot clearer. A star A. A star A. Basically, A star A determines your entire university admissions process. There's no high A star or low A star or anything like that. You either have the A star or you don't. You're predicted as this or not. It's a lot clearer. And the top universities, you need at least to get 3 A's for the program. And if you don't get 3 A's, if you do get a B, that really does change your university admissions. However, for IB, if you do get a 5, it's actually a little bit more forgiving. It's not that bad if you do get a 5. Like Sybil said, some students might actually get a 5 in Chinese. It is quite challenging for them. And the schools will recognize that and it's fine. But because you only have 3 subjects here, they really expect you to do well in those 3 subjects, get your 3 A's. Versus the IB, if you do have a 5, you can still get into a top university. You can still potentially get into an Oxbridge program with a 5, but with the A levels, it's not going to happen if you get a B. It just can't happen. And we'll take a look at some math and science offers actually, yeah. So here, take a look. Oh, hey guys. How's it going? So take a look. Here's some typical offers, and you can kind of see the comparison of these two here. So basically, the top 2 are going to be the UK, obviously Oxbridge universities here, versus the bottom 2 are 2 US unis. A lot of people actually kind of go for UPenn out of Hong Kong because of the business school there. Southern Cal is another really popular one here. But the main difference here is for the UK, you actually must choose those 2 subjects, or you must choose those subjects, or you can't even apply. So these are real offers, these are real requirements. If I want to study Oxford English, I actually must take IB English. Okay, easy. But if I want to study Cambridge chemistry, not only do I have to study chemistry, but I also must study biology as one of my HLs or as one of my A levels. And if I don't, there's no arguing. You cannot apply. Okay, so these are really rigid. Versus for the US, they actually don't have requirements as far as what your HLs are, what your SLs are. They just care more about your final score. So the US is a little bit better about that. But again, with the US, you're actually going to take the SAT, you're going to take the ACT or one of these other tests. And so there are other things to do. And then even for Cambridge, I know we were talking about this, even for Cambridge chemistry, they'll then highly recommend that you also take a math for successful application.
For top schools, because we just talked about it, normally students choose A levels, they actually want to pursue a math and science related career. So they want to go to Cambridge or Imperial College. But for the very top majors, for instance like chemical engineering, computer science, something like that, we will recommend you to choose 4 subjects, because 3, even you got A star, is not, it's not that competitive enough. Yeah. So normally, most of my students got to the top schools in UK, they actually end up with 4 subjects. And then normally like 1A star, 3A, or 2A star, 2A will be fine. Yeah, for 4 subjects for top schools, and then 3 subjects for, like UCL and below that.
And I know we were talking about the other night, even for the IB, can you take more than 3 HLs? Yes, but you need to really talk to your IB coordinator and really push for why you want to take those 4 HLs, those 5 HLs, and push because I want to do this major, because I want to get into Cambridge. And then your IB or your school counselor will say, okay, I looked at your past grades, I looked at your past experiences, let's give it a chance, we'll let you into the HL program, or we'll let you do a 4th AL, and then you can really go for it. But there is really a major difference between the UK applications and the US applications for those requirements. So essentially what we want to share is, as far as no matter which one you pick, guys, I think one of the main things for both of these is going through those past papers. Whether if you're doing IGCSEs now, or if you're doing a local curriculum or an IB curriculum or a special IB curriculum, you can still get ahead of these other assessments by actually getting the past papers and preparing for those different question types. Remember that we said for the IB, there's so many different styles of questions that you really want to make sure you've seen them before you go to class and see them. I've had so many stories of students where the teachers have never given them a past paper before they do a mock test. They've never seen it before, and they score really poorly, and this affects their predicted grade, and this affects their university applications and everything. So one of the things that we work on with students fairly often is using past papers. And for IGCSE students, the English ones are very similar to IGCSE English, whether it's language or literature or whatnot. As far as the math and science papers, I know that you guys kind of get a mixture of different topics and things too.
Yeah, I think for math and science, major difference is that you really need to know what you're learning, what is the main. Obviously we know I'm doing IB, I'm doing a lot of those, right? But actually a lot of schools, I literally have a lot of students, the school teachers give them A-level practice when they are in the IB school. Yeah, because a lot of teachers are from UK, so they have a lot of A-level resources, so they just give the A-level resources to the IB students. Okay, then you think about, okay, the knowledge should be the same. Why I cannot use the A-level practice to do the IB? You literally cannot, it's not good, because the question types are totally different. The IB math and science questions are more flexible, so are kind of more new, and you need to get used to that kind of flexible questions. But the A-levels are more repetitive, so that means they kind of have a question bank, and then they repeat themselves, kind of change a little bit. So it's more, it's just UK style, so they don't change too much. So it's really it's just
like the same IGCSE books for years and years and years and years.
Yeah, like the IGCSE questions, they usually test the past paper questions.
Yeah.
Usually. The A-levels is the same thing, they literally just use the past paper questions, change it a little bit, and then that's the new paper. But IB is totally different, it's much more flexible. But in the same time, the grade boundary is lower. So it's kind of fair. So it's IB, the question is challenging, but then you don't need to get 90% out of 100. For physics, you just need to get 65% to get the 7, which is highest. You just nearly need to pass it to get the 7.
Yeah.
So the style is really different.
And I think that's a good point about some of the international school teachers in Hong Kong. There are a lot of British international teachers in Hong Kong compared to other foreign nationalities, like American or so on. And as a result, what they might do if they are unfamiliar with the IB, this goes back to the point, really make sure your teacher is giving you all the resources you need. Really push your teacher for the things that you're asking about in the IB, because they will, if they are more familiar with A-levels, they'll end up giving you A-level materials that are okay, but they're really not the same exact thing. And so make sure you are pushing, getting resources from your teacher for English, chemistry, whatever it is, and going through those. So a lot of what we do is actually prepare for students to not only get their ready for the final exams, but get ready for the mock exams, because the mock exam scores are what you're going to use for your university applications, and then you'll get your offer based on that predicted grade. So make sure you are doing those different things. We did talk about choosing those higher levels wisely, but as far as knowing the deadlines that actually matter, I want to just remind you guys of first year and how much freedom you have in first year to actually spend your time on other things rather than just the IB or rather than just the A levels. Because year 2 is going to be so much busier, so much harder. You're going to have so many different assessments coming up. Your university applications are coming up. Maybe you get sick, who knows? So really know what deadlines matter, and part of that is making the most of your year 1 time and spending it on things that are more important than little homework assignments that are not part of your final score, right? Your teacher might give you some homework. Respect your teacher, but at the same time, don't stay awake all night doing something that is non-essential or has nothing to do with your predicted grade, nothing to do with your final score whatsoever. So really make sure that you understand that first year. And then like Sybil said about the science labs, your teacher might actually give you a science lab or a practical sort of deadline that might even be second year, right? But again, what can you be doing in first year to actually take advantage of your freer time in first year, so that when that lab is due second year, you can just go ahead and turn everything in and focus on other things. So really make sure you know those deadlines. Again, for the A levels as well, recommended to at least start taking 4. If you do sign up, Vanessa, if you do sign up for the A levels, choose 4, and you can drop it. You don't have to finish with 4. You can drop 1, but again, like Sybil said, especially for some of the engineering or the math and science courses, if you do have a 4th A level that is that math or further math or something else, it can actually help you out a lot, because unlike English or history, engineering requires a lot of different skills. Engineering will require, physics, maybe chemistry, and then of course math as well. So at least start by taking 4. I don't know if you would add on to that.
And also first year 4 subjects is totally doable, because A-level first year knowledge is really easy. Yeah, it's really easy. But the second year knowledge is much more difficult. It's kind of like this and that. Yeah. So, and another way is that by second year, some of the students already got the conditional offer, so the school will already give you how many subjects they want. If they only want 3, so there's no need to do 4, right? But if the school wants 4, then you have to do 4. So in the second year will be quite tough, because second year's content is really difficult. Yeah.
And once the school lets you know as well, as far as your predicted grades and the requirements for the admissions, if the program you're applying to, you saw Oxford English, it literally only requires English, right? So if you're going to do Oxford English, make sure you keep your A-level English. But as far as your other 3 A-levels, pick whichever one you enjoy the most. Pick which ones you're going to get the best score with, okay? So really, yes, you are looking ahead to your university program. Some programs, like chemistry in Cambridge, it's a very intense program, might actually require 4 specific subjects that you must take or goodbye, okay? Versus other subjects, you only need to take 1, and then the other 2 or the other 3 are up to you. So pick your strongest, pick your favorite ones that you really want to get into, and have some fun. Make sure you're doing, taking care of your assignments, but your UK university degree obviously depends on that, and then make sure you know those exam boards. We say the AQA very different than the EdXL and all these other different A-level things. But essentially that's it, guys. I know that was a little bit of a long presentation, but we are here for any kind of questions. So if you guys do have anything specific that you're wondering about, please just let us know. I don't know if Vanessa, after all that, if that kind of answered all your questions about the similarities and the differences for you. because you are actually choosing, fairly soon for those two programs. But any kind of specific questions that you guys are wondering, or?
Well, I do have some questions about the difference in AA and AI, but I don't know if you can quickly cover that.
So AA is like the traditional math. So AASL was just like the math SL. So it's like the most safe choice. If you want to do, for instance, business, like literature related, anything arts related, so you choose AASL. You have so many resources, very safe choice. If you want to pursue a major a little bit relates to math, then I will recommend you to choose Math HL. So you have two choices now, AI and AA. So AI HL is like more than math. So it's more relates to statistics and new stuff. So it's actually recommended by the IB if you want to do, for instance, econ related, or if you, for instance, you already decided you want to do you want to be a banker, then I will suggest you to choose AI HL. But the only risk you will have is that AI is completely new this year. So for some of the topics, it's completely new. So, and for the teachers, it's completely new as well. No one have experience. Even though major content are the same, but still there are some new topics in AI. For AAHL, it's just like the old math HL. So yeah, it's kind of safe also, but it's more calculus focused. So if you want to do, for instance, computer science, engineering, so you just choose AAHL.
What if you're doing SL math?
SL math, then you can choose, for instance, business, just not that math, demanding major will be fine, AASL, but don't choose AISL. AISL was like the least recommended because it will kind of narrow your choices a lot. Yeah.
And some universities won't even.
Won't even look at it.
Yeah. It's too easy.
Yeah.
But again, so it does come down to, and I know you guys were looking at the IB guide as far as what the IB recommends with the different majors and things like that. But just don't take the AISL.
I think most universities are quite indifferent between high-level AA and AI.
Actually, only because in US you don't have like specified this.
Yeah.
But in UK, as far as I know, for the university already kind of like released the information. Most of the universities will accept both, but like Cambridge want AA HR only. Oxford, however, can accept both. Yeah. So kind of most of, I can say like more than 70-80% of university they accept both HLs. Some of them they don't accept AI HL because, but this is only the first year because this is only the first year, they don't even have the test yet. So maybe the schools they will change their ideas next year after we already have like a task like after this May. Yeah.
I think it's just untested too.
Yeah, untested. Yeah.
So how well are the teachers going to be able to deliver the lessons? How are students going to respond? And all this stuff too. And that goes back to delivery of these things, whether it's IB or whether it's AL. The teachers are a big part of it, and you do hear stories of teachers who are a lot better at teaching the IB versus a lot better at teaching the AL, and it is a real important part for you next year because you are going into the IB. Make sure that you are really on top of your teacher as far as all of the things that are in the guidebook and everything that's a part of the program, so that you know what your teacher should be doing, and you are asking the key questions, without being rude. But and then also what you can get from your counselor, because your counselor is going to be responsible for the entire student body. It's going to be, your counselor is going to be responsible for dozens, if not hundreds of students. And then when it comes to university admissions and what programs they say they will let you apply to for universities, sometimes the counselors will give poor advice on that stuff too, so make sure you're doing your research or talking to mom and dad or talking to your friends, looking on the university websites, talking to a counselor or anybody else, because I've had students in the past who have come to me and said, where was this? This is at South Island School, where one of the counselors actually refused to let a student apply to NYU. And yeah, this is I won't say the counselor's name. She refused to let one of my students apply to NYU, and she said that it was impossible for her to get in based on her subjects. And I took one look, and we sat down and I looked at the programs, and I said, this is absolutely ridiculous. We did the application, and she got accepted for early decision. And she messaged me at 4 in the morning. I got in, oh my God. You know, and she bought a plane ticket to Japan, and she went on vacation. And but the counselor had literally refused her to do the application. And so even though when you look at adults, and adults have all the answers, challenge adults, challenge the adults in your life, and challenge the teachers, and make sure that they do know what they're talking about for the IB, for the A level. Ask why, ask what you can do, and there's always a solution. There is flexibility for the most part, but make sure that you are taking very close looks, whether it's Cambridge, who has this specific requirement, or it's NYU, who will allow you to do this versus another school. There's always another option, so keep those things in mind. Yeah. Anything else? You guys have any other questions for? Yeah.
I wanted to ask about IB history and A-levels history, because right now for my prep year,
Yeah.
already have chosen our subjects for
Okay.
the IB.
Yeah.
So I'm doing Chinese A, English A, chemistry, biology, and history.
Okay.
And then what I meant by going to considering A-levels would be
Yeah.
like after first year of IB, and
Oh,
then like
yeah.
going to say the UK for sixth form college,
Okay.
and takes like restarting.
Sure.
Instead,
Yeah.
if I mess up my predicted grades, because like
Okay.
you know, after so
That's a very special situation. Yeah.
so
Okay.
that's why the A-levels would be more of a backup for me.
Okay, I
So
understand.
then,
Yeah.
considering that I want to take medicine
Mhm.
in Hong Kong or UK,
Mhm.
or like maybe Oxbridge,
Mhm.
so that's either. So
Yeah.
then, do you think A-levels history would be worth it? Because like I've heard that, because in my school our history module would be the Asian history one
Yeah.
for HL,
Uh huh.
and then I heard that